Hey guys, and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about something that's probably going to be more popular with the original group of people that originally supported my channel when it first got started, because today we're talking about Battlefield 1 and how I believe they can save the next Battlefield title, and if not the next one then hopefully future titles. Bear in mind these are opinion based and your opinion may differ to mine, which is completely fine. The only thing that I ask is you at least stay to the end of the video so I can get my points across before you make your opinion. Now if you've ever played any other title besides Battlefield 1, I'm going to be using Battlefield 4 as my reference point here because that's what I have most hours in. I have it both on PC and on PS4. Then aside from the failed launch, you probably have some pretty fond memories. Whether it be going hard with the grind squad from early in the day to late at night, or maybe just getting home late from work or school and being able to play with your friends and staying up way later than you really should. There was something that Battlefield 4 had that Battlefield 1 to me just doesn't really feel like it has. And I think that big thing that it's lacking is the ability to be replayed. And that's simply because there just isn't a lot you can do in Battlefield 1. While not everything in the game is actually true to the era, they tried to keep it within reason. This creates a problem for anyone who enjoys multiplayer, because there's just simply not a whole lot you can do. There's no weapon attachments or anything like that you can unlock because they simply weren't a thing back then. Whereas I have memories of playing Battlefield 4 where we wanted specific attachments for certain guns so we could try out a new build. You just don't have that in Battlefield 1. Sure, you can unlock about 6,000 different variants of the same gun, and the next one's probably more useless than the last. But that doesn't give you that real feel of freedom of being able to customize your own weapons, which Battlefield 4 did. And again, while yes, they did have to keep it as true as they possibly could to the time era, I think there's a fine line when you make a game between walking reality and walking fun. Having not as much to do just seemed to suck the fun completely out of the game, because you never felt like you was really grinding towards anything or trying to unlock anything in particular. You just kind of feel like you're going through the motions over and over again. And I'm not knocking the game in any way, because I still do play it and I still do have some fun on it here and there, but it just doesn't have that same ability to be replayed over and over again like Battlefield 4 had to me. And I think that's what kills Battlefield 1 for me and quite a few other players that I've talked to before I actually made this video, was simply it just doesn't have the ability to be played over and over again because there's just nothing to work towards. Okay, while we're on the subject of weapons, we're going to talk about something that really pisses me and a lot of other players off, is premium weapons. They shouldn't be a thing, get rid of them. We do not want them here, they do not belong in this game, goodbye. Now I got a brilliant idea, let's make a game that's got hardly any guns in it as it is, and then we'll add a heap of god tier guns to the game and we'll lock them behind a paywall. Just what the hell were they thinking when they made this a thing? Premium weapons and vehicles should just not be a thing. What they should have done is locked them behind them incredibly difficult challenges that you didn't need to purchase anything for. It would have given players something to grind towards, thus logging more hours, and the player would have been rewarded with a really good gun at the end of it. Everybody wins. But no, instead what they do is they lock it behind a paywall, and then you still have to complete a challenge to get it. The only person that wins is them. So no, premium weapons and premium vehicles should not be a thing, and I hope to never see them again in another Battlefield title for as long as I'm still playing Battlefield. Because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that's ever played Battlefield and got melted before I could even so much as get the gun to my face and finish the animation framing down sight and think to myself, that's not quite right. So premium weapons and vehicles, get rid of them. They're not needed here. Thank you very much. Come on guys, even Call of Duty made it so you at least had a chance to be able to get them out of a box. I really expect better of you guys. Now while we're on the subject of weapons still, this thing will be more towards the whole equipment side of things, more particularly the rocket gun, but we'll get to that in a second. We're going to start with the dynamite. Now if you've ever played any game where you can throw dynamite or C4 around, just hearing the very words C4 or dynamite probably give you Vietnam flashbacks and you start to dive under the table for cover. Throwable dynamite and C4 just doesn't need to be a thing in my opinion, it should be a placeable. As in you should have to physically go up and place it on a vehicle if you wanted to detonate the vehicle, or say you wanted to put it on a bridge or trap a hallway or something, you should physically have to go up and actually place it where you want to be able to put it. Not literally be able to stand 20 meters away and Kobe it halfway up the hallway, because you just know there's going to be that one guy that runs around and literally throws it everywhere. And while yes it is a pretty effective tactic, it feels pretty cheesy when you get blown up by a bit of dynamite that just got thrown 300 meters by some guy that's not even involved in the fight you're in. So C4 or dynamite that you have to go up and actually physically place would be something I'd actually like to see put in the game. And I kind of have high hopes for this one, because if you remember the shock paddles from Battlefield 4, while they were hilarious to zap somebody with and they always one hit kill, they were extremely annoying when you had someone running around and diving around with them. Now in Battlefield 1 it's pretty obvious they didn't want that to be a thing because they nerfed the medical syringe. Probably a little too much in my opinion, but I would rather have it nerfed into the ground like that than like the shock paddles were, thank you very much. And I'm kind of hoping they do the same thing with dynamite / C4. AT rocket guns. What the fuck went wrong here? Okay, so I'm pretty sure that at some stage or another you've been wandering around the battlefield, minding your own business, hoping to capture that point, or maybe you're in the middle of a firefight where you've clearly got the other player way outclassed, when all of a sudden they drop down to the ground, rip out a rocket gun and just basically blow you to oblivion. But that's not the only problem for the AT rocket gun. Oh no, the list goes on and on. We're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to talk about another problem which I think is the biggest problem in Battlefield 1 for rocket guns, and I'm pretty sure everyone's experienced it at least once. If you're like me, then you probably experienced it at least 10 times a game. You'll be playing as a tank trying to capture objectives when all of a sudden you'll come across a squad where they're all carrying AT rocket guns. Now much like the dynamite, as I said earlier, while yes this is an effective tactic, it feels pretty cheesy and I don't think it feels very realistic, to be honest. I really don't think every soldier back then was going to be carrying around a rocket gun. So how do I propose that they fix this problem? Well, I propose they fix the problem with AT rocket guns the same way I wish they would with snipers. And I'm not bashing on snipers because I like to snipe myself, in fact that's all I ever did in Battlefield 4. But I'm sure we all know the pain of Battlefield 1 when you look off onto the hill and there's that many lights glaring at you that you think the freaking paparazzi's up there. So the way that I think that they should fix rocket guns and they should fix the sniper problem is, in my absence of playing Battlefield 1, I've been playing other games, and one that particularly caught my eye was Squad. Now in Squad it forces you to join a squad. It's pretty self-explanatory really. Now if you don't join a squad you can't play certain roles, and in these roles they can vary from squad leader to rifleman all the way up to marksman, an anti-tank, grenadier, all that sort of stuff. So I'm pretty sure you see where this is going. Now with these roles there's a limited amount of players that can be them, one per squad usually, sometimes two. Now I think that's what they should imply in Battlefield. Make it so people are forced to join a squad. Make it so they want to play as a team. Because right now as Battlefield stands you don't have to play as a team. You can quite easily run around by yourself and do things. Carry around some anti-tank grenades and an AT rocket gun and you're pretty much set. You can deal with tanks by yourself the lot. Now if you made it so only one person could carry an AT in a squad, obviously they're going to have to be buffed. I'd say maybe 2 to 3 shots to kill a tank to start off with, and let it run in the online servers and test out how it balances. But in making people have to join a squad and only one person being able to play an anti-tank soldier or something like that, that's going to make the team want to stick together. Because if they don't, they're going to come across a tank and they're just going to get minced. The same should be done with marksmen. There should be only one per squad, because I'm sure we've all joined a game where we've had a public squad and a bunch of guys have joined and you've got maybe one medic and the rest are all snipers. And again, not bashing on snipers because I like to snipe myself, but at the very least they can come and give you an overwatch on the objective. But nope, you're looking at these guys, they're 300 meters away facing completely opposite way to the objective you've marked. They have no interest in playing the objective whatsoever. Now that's an asshole sniper. The snipers that come over with me and actually help, they're snipers I like. But to fix this problem, I think they should limit them the same as they should anti-tank soldiers. There shouldn't be that many of them on the battlefield, it's ridiculous. Okay, now another thing I want to talk about is the spawns for Battlefield, because whoever was in charge of organising spawns for this game should be arrested. It wouldn't be so bad if it happened here and there, but far too often, ever since launch, it's happened. You'll be spawning in and then all of a sudden, you'll get knifed in the back or you'll spawn right in front of a tank. And even if you come off on the better end of this with you getting the kill because the enemy spawned in front of you, this feels pretty dirty. It's not something I think they can avoid completely, because spawn points I imagine would be pretty hard to do in a game that's so open. Like no matter where you spawn, you're probably going to spawn in the sight of someone if they're paying enough attention. But I really don't think that you should be able to spawn literally in someone's back pocket or in front of them for that matter. Another thing I want to talk about is your main base spawn point. This is more so targeted at Conquest, because that's the game mode I play a lot of. Now when you spawn in on these points, if your enemy's captured all the available points on the field, you're pretty limited to where you can and can't go once you've spawned, and you can often be funneled straight down into a bunch of MGs, or if you're driving a tank you'll come out and probably get blown up by dynamite that's been hidden somewhere. And I think we've all felt the pain of an AT mine that we didn't quite notice. And while I don't think that they should be able to run all the way up to your spawn and chuck down anti-tank equipment, I don't think it's something that should be removed from the game, because you should have the freedom to do so if you wish so. However, the fix I propose for this comes from another game that I've played, and I don't know how many other people watching this video have probably played it too, but Armor. More specifically, I'm going to use Armor Free because that's what I've played the most of. But in Armor Free, when you're playing King of the Hill mode, basically the 3 teams have a spawn that's around about 3 kilometers from the actual objective. Now, I don't expect them to put it that far away from the objective because that'd slow down the pace of the game way too much. However, what I would like them to do is move it back just a little bit more and give you more options for where you can and can't go instead of being funneled down into one street into the first objective that's nearest to your main spawn. If you want to go out way wide left or right and come in from that angle, you should be able to. You shouldn't be funneled straight down one street to it. It makes it way too easy to trap, and I honestly can't believe that whoever was in charge of doing this hasn't already thought of it, because in my opinion that's a pretty reasonable fix. Okay, now this is the one that I expect to get the most split opinions on, but this is just me thinking out loud, and it's something I have thought long and hard about, and it's something I'd really like to see added to future Battlefield titles. And that's squad leader roles. Like, sure, you can be a squad leader now, but apart from marking objectives for your squad to capture, there's not really a whole lot for you to do. And I guess they did this in a way to keep it so it was casual enough that anybody could enjoy it. However, for people who'd like just that little bit more to do, I have a suggestion in mind. Now, if you remember back to Battlefield 4, they had those dreaded spawn beacons that you could use on the recon class. Everybody hated those things so much unless you was the one using them. Now that I've mentioned spawn beacons, you're probably thinking I really do not like where this is going. But just hear me out for 1 second, because they kind of tie into the idea that I've had. And that idea again comes from squad, because in squad, if you're the squad leader, among a lot of other things you can do, because it's a lot more technical than Battlefield, one of the things you can do is put down spawn beacons known as rally points. In order for you to be able to place these rally points, you have to be able to have a couple of your squad mates nearby. Now, I don't expect them to put that part of it in, because it'd make it too difficult if he was playing in a public match and had no way to communicate with anybody. Now, with these only having a limited amount of times you could spawn on them, and having only the squad leader being able to place them once per life, even if they had been rearmed, I think that'd give something a little extra for the squad leader to do, and keep it so you could put up a tactical flank without making them too spammy like the old recon beacons used to be, because the last thing we want is 101 people running around placing those things everywhere again. And unlike in Battlefield 4, I'd rather them so even if they're on a rooftop, you spawn on the ground and not on the infamous drop from the sky parachute fall, because that was just horrible. This simple little thing that the squad leader could do, I think, would make it a little more fun to play as the squad leader, and I think it'd make for some really tactical plays. One thing that I think they should do is, if the squad leader has done their job and they've done good as a squad leader, then people should be able to commend them, or they should have some sort of reward system to actually reward good squad leaders. Because I mean, sure, you can request squad leader now by requesting an order, and if they don't place one, then you'll get the squad leader role. But that only really punishes the bad ones. It doesn't really reward the good squad leaders. That's something I'd really like to see put into the game. Here's another one I expect to get a pretty mixed response, and it's basically a complete rework of the whole movement system. Like, most of the time the movement feels pretty smooth, but that isn't where the problem lies within Battlefield. In my opinion, they should completely remove the jumping system and have it so you can only like jump and vault walls or fences or anything like that, but have it so it's pretty solid, because we don't want to be getting stuck on things and not be able to jump over them or anything like that. Or even if they just made it so the jumping wasn't as spammable as it is now, because you see a lot of players, they run and they jump around the place and then they just lay down. And it's the sort of thing you expect to play in more of an arcade fast-paced shooter game than you do in a game like Battlefield. And after playing games where you can only jump, vault or climb over things instead of being able to like just jump around normally, you realise when you come into a combat situation how much smoother it is and how much more enjoyable it is without that one person that has to spam jump everywhere to try and avoid those headshots or something like that. It's just really silly, and I don't think it's something that needs to be in the game, and I think it'd make combat more enjoyable all round, not just for those people. Now, another thing with the movement system is weight. I don't expect you to have a full inventory that contributes to this weight or anything like that based on what equipment or gun you're carrying. I think should affect how fast your player moves, and this shouldn't be able to be worked around by simply pulling out a pistol or pulling out your knife and running around like that. And I don't expect it to be to the point where people using LMGs basically can't move at all, but I think they should either be a little bit slower than other players that are carrying lighter weapons, or at the very least they should run out of stamina a lot quicker, and this would force them to play in a way that LMGs are supposed to be used, getting into those flanking positions, setting up and suppressing people that are trying to make a flank, adding to the immersion of combat, and ultimately making it more fun for everybody to play. Now, you could argue the point that this would slow down gameplay too much, but if you combine this with the fact that there should be a limited amount of people playing roles like this, such as the marksman, an anti-tank soldier, or even a machine gunner, then I doubt the one or two from each squad's really going to slow down the gameplay that much. I also think this would make setting up mortar sites and protecting them much more viable than what they are in the game now, and it would hopefully encourage players to not just run up and place mortars down and just start firing upon objectives. Like, even if they gave the mortars a little bit more range so they're more tempted to sit a bit further away and protect their actual mortar sites, I think that that'd be a good trade-off. And now perhaps for the biggest problem plaguing Battlefield at the moment, and that's the lack of communication. Now one of the reasons I think that people don't communicate in this game is because the communication system for it is absolute garbage. We don't need no super advanced 15 different channels chat system or anything like that. I think 3 would be quite sufficient. There should be one for your squad chat, there should be one for proximity, so you can talk to friendly players that are around you without interrupting the other channels. Now obviously the enemy team shouldn't be able to hear this. The third channel should be squad leaders, again given that little extra role for the squad leader to play. Now why do I say that squad leaders should be able to talk to each other? Because again, playing other games where you can communicate with other squad leaders allows you to be able to coordinate an attack together. It allows your squad leader to tell the other squad that you're going to take one flank and they should take the other. And seeing how this plays out on other games, you really wish it was something that Battlefield had. Because sometimes when you're playing Battlefield, it feels like your team is just your squad. You feel cut off completely from your team, with no way to practically communicate with the other members of your team besides the ones that are already in your squad. Now I'm not sure how they'd work it out so you can use these 3 different channels on console because of the lack of buttons on a controller, but I've definitely seen it used on a keyboard and mouse before and it works really well, it's effective, and it's a practical way to communicate and organise decent attacks. It's a simple thing, but it's something that I would like to see somehow put into the Battlefield scene, and it could completely change the way that combat's done. Because if you join a game, you can completely tell when your team's not coordinating because you're getting steamrolled by the other team. Like a lot of the time, I guarantee you can check the top of the leaderboard, and it'll be dominated by a group of people all from the same platoon. And why is that? Because communication. Even simple callouts can make the difference in a combat situation of whether you win the point or you lose the point. And this is one of the biggest things that takes away from Battlefield in my opinion, because a lot of the time it doesn't feel fun when you're the only one that's trying to push an objective, but you're still getting steamrolled by the other team because they're communicating and you're not. Even if you're on the winning side when you're steamrolling the other team, it just doesn't feel fun sometimes. It never feels competitive. It never really feels like you gotta work for your kills. It just feels like you're running completely over the enemy team. So that's why for me, communication is one of the biggest turn-offs for Battlefield at the moment, and arguably one of the most important ones that they have to look into fixing. Now if there's any of these that you disagree with, that's fine. Please let me know in the comments, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask there also, or even tweet at me on Twitter. However, if you did find yourself agreeing with me on anything that I've said in this video, then please leave a thumbs up. It helps me out a tremendous amount. So until the next video, later guys.
I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle. To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock. Think the people have spoken.